we hear the sad news of the passing of legends. Today, the world says goodbye to remarkable souls who left their mark on history, hearts, and homes. In this video, we take a moment to remember them, to honor their legacy, their laughter, their love, and their light. Join us as we pay tribute to those we lost and celebrate the unforgettable lives they lived. On June 22, 2025, just outside Los Angeles, the road claimed a life far too soon. Chandler Jones, former San Jose State football standout and rising coach, died tragically in a car crash. He was only 33 years old. News of his death spread like wildfire through locker rooms, stadiums, and campuses, not just because of who he was on the field, but because of the man he was off it. Strong, kind, relentless. Gone in a moment. Chandler was born on August 17, 1991, in Inglewood, California, a city where talent is tested and toughness is built. He grew up with grit in his blood, passion in his heart, and a drive to overcome. Football wasn't just a game, it was a lifeline. From Pop Warner Fields to high school Friday night lights, Chandler carried a presence that couldn't be ignored. In 2009, he enrolled at San Jose State University, where he began carving his legacy as a wide receiver. He wasn't the biggest or fastest, but he was reliable, driven, and fearless. He made every snap count, every catch earned. Teammates admired his work ethic, and coaches leaned on his leadership. He finished his college career with over 2,000 receiving yards and a place among the school's most dependable offensive players. But his impact wasn't measured just in stats, it was in spirit. Chandler was a motivator, a teammate who lifted others, a student athlete who understood the responsibility of wearing the jersey. His discipline earned him respect. His smile earned him friendship. After graduation, he stayed close to the game he loved. Turning from player to coach, Chandler began working with young athletes, first as a graduate assistant, then climbing the ranks. His return to San Jose State as a position coach was a full-circle moment, a hometown hero mentoring the next generation. He was passionate about developing receivers, but even more passionate about developing men. For Chandler, coaching wasn't about X's and O's. It was about character, accountability, and preparing his players for life beyond football. In every film session, every practice, every quiet one-on-one talk after a tough loss, he gave his all. He was the kind of coach athletes remembered long after their final snap. Off the field, Chandler was grounded, deeply family-oriented, and dedicated to lifting up his community. He ran youth clinics in underserved areas, mentored local high school athletes, and spoke at schools about discipline, faith, and hard work. He carried himself with humility, always listening more than speaking, always leading by example. On the morning of June 22nd, a rainy stretch of highway near Los Angeles changed everything. The crash was sudden, devastating, and it left a void no whistle, no cheer, and no timeout could ever fill. His players wept. His fellow coaches stood stunned. Social media flooded with memories, photos of game days, practice fields, handwritten notes from players he believed in. Each post echoed the same truth. Chandler Jones was more than a football mind. He was a life force. At just 33, his life was still being written. There were chapters of promise ahead, bigger programs, perhaps even the NFL, a family of his own, a legacy still expanding. But in his short time, he did what so few manage. He made a permanent impact. Chandler lived for the game, but he was never defined by it. He was defined by integrity, compassion, leadership, and love. As the stadium lights dim and teammates hold back tears, the message is clear. Coach Chandler Jones will never be forgotten. His legacy isn't just etched into highlight reels or coaching handbooks. It lives on in every player who believed in themselves because he believed in them first. Rest easy. Coach, your time was brief, but your influence will echo for generations. On June 22, 2025, the world of daytime television lost one of its steady, enduring voices. Joe Marinelli, a veteran actor known for his compelling roles on General Hospital, Santa Barbara, and countless other screen appearances, passed away at the age of 68. The cause: a long and courageous battle with throat and stomach cancer. A battle He fought with the same quiet intensity that defined his work for decades. Born on December 18, 1956, in Cleveland, Ohio, Joe was the son of working-class parents who taught him the values of persistence and humility. Early on, it became clear he had a gift for observation, a sensitivity to people's emotions, and a knack for embodying them. Discovered theater in high school and never looked back. After earning his degree in acting, Joe made his way to Los Angeles, like so many dreamers before him. But he wasn't chasing celebrity, he was chasing craft. He studied the method, honed his voice, and worked jobs to survive while auditioning relentlessly. And eventually, the camera found him. His breakthrough came in the late 1980s, when he landed a role on the beloved soap Santa Barbara. As audiences came to know his face, they saw something rare: depth and stillness, power and nuance. Joe brought a raw, honest energy to every character he portrayed. He could deliver heartbreak with a glance or suspense with the tightening of a jaw. He soon found a second home on General Hospital, soap opera institution where he spent years enriching storylines with performances that felt lived in and true. Whether playing a morally torn family man, a cunning villain, or a weary confidant, Joe had a talent for disappearing into roles. He wasn't flashy, it was real. Though often behind the scenes of splashier leads, he became a quiet pillar of the soap world, respected by directors, admired by castmates, and cherished by longtime viewers who knew the difference between performance and presence. In an industry often ruled by spectacle, Joe offered substance off-screen. Joe was known for his humility and warmth. He wasn't one to seek headlines or chase awards. He mentored young actors, gave thoughtful interviews, and always arrived on set prepared, grounded, and gracious. His colleagues remember him not just for his skill, but for his kindness. He had time for everyone's stagehands, makeup artists, fans at conventions. He made people feel seen when cancer arrived. It did so slowly and painfully. Kept most of his struggle private, continuing to work when he could, refusing to let illness define his final chapters. In his last months, he leaned on family, close friends, and a small circle of colleagues who stood by him with love. His passing on that quiet June day marked not just the loss of an actor, but the loss of a rare kind of man in Hollywood. Someone who treated the work as sacred. Someone who showed that longevity in this business wasn't about being lauded, it was about being authentic. Joe Marinelli may not have been a household name to everyone, but to those who watched soaps faithfully, he was a familiar presence, a trusted performer, a face that made the wild world of daytime drama feel grounded and human. As the cameras roll on without him, space remains where Joe once stood. And for those who knew his work, that space will never quite be filled. Rest in peace, Joe. Your voice, though silenced by illness, echoes on in every story you helped tell. You were steady, you were real, and you were unforgettable. On July 1st, 2025, the voice that once echoed across millions of television screens fell silent. Jimmy Swaggart, the fiery televangelist, accomplished gospel musician, founder of Sun Life Broadcasting Network, passed away at the age of 90. With his death ends a life of immense faith, fervent controversy, an undeniable influence across the world of American evangelicalism. Born on March 15, 1935, in Ferriday, Louisiana, Swaggart grew up in a deeply religious, musically gifted Pentecostal family. Music, God, and struggle were the threads of his early life. His cousin Jerry Lee Lewis would become a rock and roll legend. Another cousin, Mickey Gilley, a country music star. But Jimmy chose a different path, one paved with scripture, revival tents, and a mission to save souls. As a young preacher in the 1950s, began evangelizing in rural churches across the South, armed with little more than a Bible, a piano, and the Holy Spirit. By the 1970s, his reach exploded. Through his powerful preaching and soul-stirring gospel music, Swaggart became a dominant voice in the rise of televangelists. By the 1980s, the Jimmy Swaggart telecast was broadcast weekly in over 100 countries, reaching more than 8 million viewers. His sermons were impassioned, urgent, and often emotional. His music, especially his piano-led gospel performances, became staples in evangelical homes. Songs like "There Is a River in Jesus," "Just the Mention of Your Name Captured," both his musical prowess and spiritual depth. But his life was not without its trials. In 1988, Swaggert's empire shook under the weight of scandal. A very public moral failing led to his temporary fall from grace and a highly scrutinized apology that aired live to millions. "I have sinned against you, my lord," he wept, eyes filled with remorse. For some, it was the end of their faith in him. For others, it was a moment of human frailty that mirrored biblical figures like David, flawed, but still chosen. Though exiled from the assemblies of God, Swaggart never left the pulpit. He founded the Sun Life Broadcasting Network, rebuilt his ministry, and kept preaching with the same fire, often from Family Worship Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Over the next 3 decades, he maintained a loyal, global following, streamed sermons, and expanded his reach with a mix of preaching, teaching, and gospel performance. His later years were quieter, but no less passionate. He focused on evangelism, writing, and music, never abandoning the mission he believed was his life's calling. He was a man of paradox, intensely private, yet perpetually public, criticized and mocked by some, revered and defended by others. Regardless of where one stood, no one could deny his place in the story of American religion. His death marks the closing chapter of one of the most influential and turbulent figures in modern evangelicalism. Few have fallen as far and risen again with such resilience. Few have preached to as many. Few have sung gospel with such soul to his supporters. Jimmy Swaggart was more than a preacher. He was a shepherd, a prophet, a lifeline in dark moments. To his critics, he was a cautionary tale. But to history, he will always be remembered as a towering figure who helped shape the modern landscape of faith, television, and gospel music. Now the piano is still, the pulpit is quiet, but the echoes remain in songs, sermons, and souls forever touched by his voice. Rest in peace, Reverend Swaggart. You ran the race, you fought the battle, and you sang the song. And now, the choir welcomes you home. On June 11, 2025, the world lost one of its most profound musical minds. Brian Wilson, co-founder of the Beach Boys, died at the age of 82. The cause was respiratory arrest and related complications. As the sun set over California that day, a hush fell over the coast. It wasn't just the loss of a man, it was the silence of a harmony that once changed the world. Born on June 20th, 1942, in Hawthorne, California, Brian Douglas Wilson entered a post-war America already resonating with the sounds of change. From an early age, he demonstrated rare musical gifts, pitch, a photographic memory for melodies, and an instinct for structure that defied his youth. Music became his language of survival in a home often marked by fear. His father was abusive, his childhood uncertain, but the piano became his refuge. With his brothers Carl and Dennis, cousin Mike Love, and friend Al Jardine, Brian formed the Beach Boys in 1961. At first, the group was just another surf rock band, echoing the West Coast's obsession with sunshine and waves, but Brian was always reaching higher. By the time he was in his early 20s, he was writing, arranging, producing songs that didn't just reflect California, they redefined pop music itself. Between 1963 and 1966, Brian's creative explosion was unparalleled. He gave the world hits like Surfer Girl, In My Room, California Girls, and the hauntingly beautiful Don't Worry Baby. But it was with Pet Sounds that he achieved his masterstroke. Released in 1966, it stunned critics and inspired peers, most notably the Beatles, who considered it a benchmark in artistic ambition. Then came Good Vibrations, an innovative mosaic of sound that took months to craft. It shattered pop conventions and proved that Brian Wilson was not just a hitmaker, he was a composer in the purest sense. A sonic architect, unafraid of complexity or vulnerability. But genius has its burden. As his musical achievements soared, so did his internal struggles. Paranoia, depression, and drug use slowly pulled him into darkness. By the 1970s, Brian became reclusive, barely leaving his room, haunted by voices and weighed down by the very brilliance that had set him apart. 4. Years he disappeared from the spotlight, a ghost of his former self, manipulated by those who claimed to help him. But even the deepest silence couldn't extinguish the melody inside him. In the late 80s and into the 2000s, Brian began to reclaim his life. With the help of new friends and doctors, he returned to the stage and the studio. In 2004, he finally completed Smile, the long-lost masterpiece once abandoned in his prime. It was a triumphant moment not just for music, but for the soul behind it. He spent his later years performing around the world, receiving standing ovations from fans who had never stopped believing. He was honored with a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and recognized by the Kennedy Center for his unmatched contributions. Even in his final days, music remained his sanctuary. The man who once wrote, "God only knows what I'd be without you," left behind a legacy that answers that question in full. Brian Wilson wasn't just the heart of the Beach Boys, he was the soul of a generation. Yes. His melodies captured longing, joy, and the ache of growing up. He turned pain into beauty and silence into song. Though his voice is quieted, his music will never fade out. It will echo down every coast, drift across every summer breeze, and live forever in the hearts of those who still believe in good vibrations. Rest in peace, Brian Wilson. The world was better with your music in it. On June 24, 2025, Bobby Sherman, once the face of innocence, charm, and teen idol dreams, passed away at the age of 81. The cause was stage 4 cancer, a cruel and quiet illness that slowly dimmed the life of a man who once lit up millions of teenage hearts. With his death came the end of a chapter in American pop culture, a chapter where wide smiles, boyish charisma, and bubblegum pop ruled the airwaves. He was born Robert Cabot Sherman Jr. on July 22, 1943, in Santa Monica, California. Raised in the warm glow of post-war optimism, Bobby was a California kid, through and through, handsome, athletic, and full of charm. But it wasn't the beach or baseball that pulled him, it was music. By the time he was in his late teens, he was already writing songs, playing multiple instruments, and dreaming of stages bigger than his neighborhood garage. Fate found him in the most Hollywood of ways. Discovered at a party where he performed impromptu, Bobby quickly rose from anonymity to national sensation. His big break came in the late 1960s, when he landed a recurring role on the popular TV show Shindig. And from there, his trajectory was meteoric. Bobby Sherman became a teen idol almost overnight. He wasn't just a singer or an actor, he was a phenomenon. His posters were on bedroom walls, his songs played endlessly on AM radios, and his name was whispered with teenage devotion. From coast to coast, hits like Little Woman, Julie, Do You Love Me, and Easy Come. Easy Go topped the charts and captured the spirit of a more innocent time. At the height of his fame, he was everywhere, on lunchboxes and teen magazines, on every major talk show. He starred in the TV series Here Come the Brides, where his character, Jeremy Bolt, became as beloved as his music. Girls screamed at concerts, bought every record, and lined up for autographs. He was as much a part of the late 60s and early 70s as bell bottoms and love beads. But Bobby's story didn't end with the stage or the screen. In a move few stars of his caliber have ever made, he walked away from Hollywood by choice. In the mid-1970s, he pursued a very different calling: emergency medicine. He became a trained paramedic and later a reserve police officer, dedicating decades of his life to public service. While the world remembered him as a heartthrob, Bobby was saving lives, teaching CPR, responding to calls with quiet dignity and courage. His life had two acts, one bathed in stardom, the other in service, and in both, he made a difference. Even as his fame faded from the headlines, those who knew him never forgot the kindness behind the smile, the depth behind the dimples, and the integrity with which he lived his life. In his later years, he stayed mostly out of the limelight, content, private, and at peace. When cancer came, it did so quietly. He battled bravely, but without spectacle, passing surrounded by family and love, far from the screams of adoring fans. yet never forgotten by them. Bobby Sherman wasn't just a pop idol. He was a symbol of simpler times, of youthful innocence, and of what it means to reinvent yourself with purpose. He sang, he acted, he healed, and in all things, he led with heart. Now the voice that once made young hearts flutter is silent. But the echoes remain in the lyrics of his songs, in the memories of a generation, and in the lives he touched, both on and off the stage. Rest easy, Bobby Sherman. You were more than a star. You were a light and you'll never fade. On June 17, 2025, a bright light in the culinary world was unexpectedly extinguished. Anne Burrell, celebrated chef, Food Network star, and the unmistakable voice of worst cooks in America, was found dead in her Brooklyn home. She was 55 years old. Her passing sent shockwaves through kitchens across the country, not just because of who she was on camera, but because of how deeply she inspired those off it. Born on September 21, 1969, in Cazenovia, New York, Anne's passion for food was ignited early. Raised in a small town but dreaming big, she quickly learned that food could be more than fuel. It could be an expression, a joy, a calling. That belief never left her. After earning a degree in English and communications, Anne followed her heart to the Culinary Institute of America and later to Italy's prestigious Italian Culinary Institute for Foreigners. There, her love for rustic Italian cooking took full root. She studied under master chefs, immersed herself in local traditions, and brought that knowledge back to American kitchens with flair. Before she was ever a TV personality, Anne was already earning respect in the toughest place to do so, professional kitchens. She worked her way through restaurants in New York City, eventually becoming a sous chef at Lydia Bastonich's Felidia, and later an executive chef at Centro Viniteca. Her spiky blonde hair, bold attitude, and booming laugh made her impossible to miss, but it was her skill that made her unforgettable. Television came calling, and America met Anne through shows like Secrets of a Restaurant Chef, Iron Chef America, and most famously, Worst Cooks in America. It was there she found her true audience, not just food lovers, but underdogs, people who thought they couldn't cook, couldn't learn, couldn't change. Anne showed them they could. With every season, she turned disasters into dinners, doubts into confidence. She was tough, loud, hilarious, but also deeply compassionate. She pushed her contestants because she believed in them. Viewers loved her for it. Anne wasn't a polished, posh culinary figure. She was real. A little messy, a lot passionate, and utterly fearless. Behind the camera, she was just as vibrant. Friends and colleagues remember her as fiercely loyal, endlessly supportive, and unapologetically herself. She championed women in the kitchen, mentored young chefs, and never stopped encouraging people to find their own flavor. Whether you were a Michelin hopeful or a microwave warrior, Anne treated you like you mattered. The news of her death was sudden and deeply heartbreaking. Details remain private, but the shock was felt across the food world. Tributes poured in from celebrity chefs, former contestants, and home cooks who learned from her how to chop, season, and believe. Her Brooklyn brownstone, once filled with laughter and clattering pans, now sits silent. But her legacy lives on. Anne Burrell didn't just cook meals, she cooked with fire, with soul, and with purpose. She made cooking joyful, accessible, and sit loud. She reminded people that food could heal, teach, and transform. And in doing so, she transformed countless lives, though the kitchen now feels quieter. Her voice still echoes in every home where someone finally nailed a risotto, conquered a roast, or stopped being afraid of the stove because of her rest. In peace, Anne, you spiced up the world, and we will forever savor the flavor you left behind. On June 26, 2025, the curtain quietly fell on a familiar and beloved face of American television. Rick Hurst, best known to millions as the lovable and bumbling deputy Cletus Hogg from The Dukes of Hazzard, passed away at the age of 79. His death marked the end of a career filled with laughter, warmth, and a unique presence that made even the smallest roles unforgettable. He was born Richard Douglas Hurst on January 1st, 1946, in Houston, Texas. From an early age, he carried with him a natural sense of humor and a keen eye for character. But acting didn't come instantly. Like many who carved their own path in Hollywood, Rick's journey was built on determination, patience, and persistence. After graduating from high school and briefly attending college, he took the leap westward, pursuing acting seriously in the 1960s. While others chased fame, Rick chased craft. He studied his roles, shaped his delivery, and built a reputation as a reliable, grounded, and versatile actor. Whether in drama or comedy, guest spots, or long-running shows, Rick Hurst always left a mark. His career began with small roles in television shows like Sanford and Son, The Bob Newhart Show, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. He became a familiar face on screens throughout the 70s, but it was in 1979 that Rick landed the role that would make him a pop culture fixture, Deputy Cletus Hogg in The Dukes of Hazzard. Cletus wasn't the brightest badge in Hazzard County, but he was honest, kind-hearted, and utterly hilarious. With his wide eyes, awkward stumbles, and slow southern drawl, Rick brought Cletus to life with a sense of charm that balanced the show's chaos. While Boss Hogg schemed and Roscoe chased, Cletus offered comic relief wrapped in innocence. Though his run on the show was limited, fans embraced him completely. He wasn't just a side character, he became part of the Duke's family. His work on the show cemented him in the hearts of a generation that grew up on dirt roads, muscle cars, and country values. But Rick Hurst's talents went far beyond one role. Continued to appear in films and television for decades. Murder, She Wrote, Matlock, Walker, Texas Ranger, and Steel Magnolias, to name a few. He was a character actor in the truest sense, blending into stories without ego, but always leaving behind something memorable. Off-screen, Rick was known for his humility. He never chased stardom. Instead, he appreciated the simple joys conventions, where he met lifelong fans, letters from people who still remembered Cletus, and opportunities to mentor younger actors. His warmth extended beyond the screen, and those who worked with him often spoke of his kindness and steady spirit in his final years. Rick withdrew quietly from the spotlight. Though the cameras stopped rolling, the memories remained strong. Fans continued to revisit Hazzard County, laugh at Cletus's antics, smile at the gentle heart Rick brought to every scene. When the news of his passing broke, tributes poured in, not from tabloids, but from everyday people, fans, families, viewers who had shared weeknights with the quirky deputy and now felt the sting of his loss. That was Rick's legacy, not just fame, but familiarity. Felt like someone you knew, someone who made your living room feel a little warmer. Rick Hurst may not have sought to be a star, but in the eyes of many, he became one. A quiet one, a consistent one, a kind one. As the roads of Hazzard County grow a little quieter, one thing is certain: Deputy Cletus will never be forgotten. And neither will the man who gave him life. Rest easy, Rick. You brought joy, you brought laughter, and you'll always have a place in our hearts.